The bass thrummed through the walls of Eclipse Lounge like a physical force, vibrating through Carly's chest with each pulsing beat. She pressed herself against the cold metal of the bathroom door, her heart hammering faster than the music outside. 3 deep breaths. That was all she needed. 3 deep breaths and she could walk back out there. A smile plastered across her face as if everything was fine. But everything was far from fine. Her phone buzzed in her clutch for the 23rd time in the past hour. She did not need to look to know who it was. Marcus. Always Marcus. The messages had started innocent enough when she had finally escaped him 4 months ago. Just checking in. Hope you are doing okay. Miss you. But they had evolved into something darker, more threatening. I know you switched apartments again. Did you really think that would stop me? I am a cop, Carly. I can find you anywhere. You cannot hide from me. And she knew he was right. She had tried twice already. The first time, he had shown up at her new place within a week. The second time, 3 days. Each time, his visits ended with bruises she had to hide under her scrubs at work. She smoothed down the front of the borrowed black dress that Nina had insisted she wear tonight. You need to get out of that hellhole apartment, Nina had said while applying lipstick with practiced precision. Marcus does not own you. He never did. You survived 7 foster homes, domestic abuse, and nursing school, with $120,000 in debt. You are the strongest person I know. Do not let that psycho win. Nina was right, of course, but knowing something in your head and feeling it in your bones were 2 entirely different things. Especially when your abuser carried a badge and a gun. Especially when his colleagues had laughed her out of the precinct the one time she had tried to file a report. The bathroom door burst open and Nina stumbled in, her usual composure slightly ruffled by champagne and dancing. There you are. I have been looking everywhere. Come on. My cousin got us into the VIP section. She grabbed Carly's hand, her enthusiasm infectious despite Carly's reluctance. Carly let her pull her back into the chaos of the main room. The club was packed tonight, the most exclusive venue in Manhattan, filled with people whose monthly bar tabs probably exceeded her annual salary. Bodies moved in synchronization to music that felt more like a heartbeat than a melody. Colored lights sliced through artificial fog, creating an otherworldly atmosphere that made everything feel simultaneously more real and less so. And that was when she saw him. Marcus stood near the bar, still in his off-duty clothes but with that familiar predatory focus in his eyes as he scanned the crowd. He had not seen her yet, but it was only a matter of time. The club suddenly felt too small, the walls closing in despite the cavernous space. Her breath caught in her throat. Her ribs ached with the memory of his last visit, the fracture that had only just healed. "Nina," she hissed, tugging on her friend's arm. "Marcus is here." Nina followed her gaze and her expression hardened. That obsessive piece of shit. How did he even get in here? He flashed his badge. Probably. Carly's voice was hollow. He always does. I told you we should have gone to the feds. You cannot go to the feds because a cop texts too much. You can when those texts include photos of you sleeping, Carly. When he breaks into your apartment and leaves roses on your pillow. When he puts you in the hospital and calls it love. Were they threats? Sometimes Carly could not tell anymore. 18 months of dating Marcus had rewired her brain, made her question her own reality. He had a way of making everything sound like concern, like protection, like she was the ungrateful one for not appreciating how much he loved her. But there was always an undercurrent, a promise of violence lurking beneath his words. I will kill anyone who touches you. I will destroy your life if you leave me. You are mine, Carly. Mine until I decide otherwise. He turned and their eyes met across the crowded room. Even from this distance, she could see his expression change. Recognition, then something else. Possession. Rage. His jaw tightened as he started moving through the crowd toward her. And Carly knew with absolute certainty that if he got his hands on her tonight, she would not survive it. If you want to know what happens next, hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Share this story with someone who loves a good dark romance. Now, back to Carly, who was about to make the most dangerous decision of her life. Nina did not need to hear another word. She clutched Carly's hand and yanked her backward, threading through bodies that were dancing as if both their lives depended on it. Because maybe they did. The VIP area in the back. Nina shouted over the deafening music. My cousin is there. He can't get in. Carly did not dare look back, but she could feel him, feel his gaze burning into the nape of her neck as if he were touching her with invisible fingers. 18 months with him had taught her to sense his presence by instinct, the way her body automatically shrank whenever he was near. The crowd was thick like a living wall, unfamiliar faces sliding past under the strobing lights. Someone slammed into Carly's shoulder and she nearly fell. Nina tightened her grip and dragged her onward. "Hurry, hurry, hurry." Carly heard shouting behind them, Marcus barking orders. "Move aside, NYPD." Move aside. He was using his badge to carve a path. Of course he was. He always used his power to get what he wanted. And what he wanted now was her. Carly's heart hammered as if it would burst from her chest. Her legs trembled in the high heels she had borrowed from Nina, shoes she had never learned to walk in. She stumbled, almost went down, but Nina hauled her upright without hesitation. The VIP area loomed ahead, blocked by a red velvet rope and a bouncer built like a bear. Nina waved wildly at her cousin standing inside. Ricardo, open the door for us." The man recognized Nina at once and nodded to the guard. The velvet rope lifted. Carly lunged inside, as if into the arms of salvation, but the relief lasted exactly 3 seconds. She looked back and saw Marcus at the rope. He was saying something to the bouncer, face flushed with rage, finger stabbing straight toward Carly. He flashed his badge. The guard hesitated. "No, no, no," Carly whispered, her voice shaking. "He will get in. He always does." The VIP area was far more luxurious than the chaos outside, with gleaming black leather sofas and soft golden light. But to Carly, it felt no different than a gilded cage. Her eyes darted frantically, searching for another way out. A back door, a window, anything. Nina was arguing with the bouncer, trying to keep Marcus out, but Carly knew it would not last. He was a cop, he had a gun, he had power, and he had the madness of a man who believed he was right. She could not keep running. She had been running for 4 months, and he had still found her. This time she needed something more than escape. She needed a barrier even Marcus would not dare cross. And that was when her gaze stopped at the farthest corner of the VIP area, where the shadows were thickest, where a man sat alone as if the world itself were not worth his attention. That man was utterly different from everyone else in the club. He was not dancing, not laughing, not trying to impress anyone. He simply sat there in a perfectly tailored black suit, a glass of amber liquor in his hand, his gaze drifting over the crowd with the detached indifference of a king surveying his subjects. His face looked as if it had been carved from stone. High cheekbones, a square jaw, and eyes so dark Carly could not read a single emotion in them. Along his arm, tattoos curled and vanished beneath the cuff of his shirt. Everything about this man screamed danger, but Carly no longer had the luxury of fearing a distant threat when the immediate one was closing in behind her. Marcus's voice sounded right by her ear. "You think you can run?" His hand clamped around her wrist, fingers tightening exactly where the old bruises had only just begun to fade. The familiar pain shot up her arm, stealing her breath. He spun her around, yanking her flush against him until she could smell the beer on his breath. "Smile," he snarled through his teeth, his voice low enough that only she could hear. "Smile like nothing is happening. You have embarrassed me in front of so many people. When we get home, I will teach you some manners." Home. Those 2 words froze the blood in Carly's veins. He still called their old apartment home, as if those 18 months of hell were something she should long for. "Marcus, please." Her voice collapsed into a desperate whisper. She tried to pull free, but he squeezed harder, certain to leave fresh bruises over the old ones. "Please," he scoffed. "Now you know how to beg. 4 months ago you did not beg when you ran off like a dog. You did not beg when you blocked my number. You did not beg when you made me tear this whole city apart looking for you." Nina was trying to push her way toward them, but Ricardo was holding her back, unaware of what was happening. To anyone watching, Marcus and Carly looked like a couple sharing an intimate conversation. He was always good at hiding things, always knew how to make everything look normal while beneath it lay pure hell. "Come on." Marcus started dragging her toward the exit. "My car is parked outside. We have a lot to talk about." "No." Carly resisted, but her strength was nothing compared to his. He was a trained cop, taller than her by a full head, heavier by nearly 40 kilograms. She was like a doll in his hands. And then her eyes found the man in the dark corner again. He was watching her, not with the idle curiosity of the other patrons, but with a look that assessed, analyzed, calculated, the gaze of one predator recognizing another. Carly did not know what possessed her to do what came next. Maybe it was desperation. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was because she had nothing left to lose. She wrenched her wrist one last time with every ounce of strength she had, and at the same moment, drove the heel of her shoe down onto the top of Marcus's foot. He hissed in pain, loosening his grip for just a second. A second was enough. Carly ran, not toward the exit, not toward Nina, but straight toward the stranger in the dark corner, the most dangerous man in the room. She rushed up to him, and before he could react, before Marcus could catch her, before she could think about the consequences, Carly bent down and pressed her lips to the stranger's mouth. "I am sorry I am late," she said loudly enough for Marcus to hear. Traffic was terrible. For a moment, the stranger was completely still. His lips were rigid beneath hers, his body taut as a drawn wire, and Carly thought she had made a fatal mistake. Then his hand came up, not to push her away, but to slide into her hair, strong fingers locking at the back of her neck, and he kissed her back, truly kissed her back, not the shallow distraction she had intended, but something deeper, hotter, as if he were staking a claim in front of the entire world. His mouth moved against hers with the confidence of a man who had never been denied anything. When they finally parted, Carly was breathing hard, her head spinning, and his dark eyes held hers without blinking, and for the first time she understood something. He was not surprised at all, as if he had known she would come to him long before she did. "Who the hell are you?" Marcus's voice slashed through the air, thick with rage and disbelief, as he stood less than 2 meters away, face flushed, hands clenched into fists. "She is my girlfriend." The stranger rose slowly, one hand still resting on Carly's waist, as if that was where it belonged, taller than Marcus, broader than Marcus, and somehow far more dangerous. Wrong, just one word, spoken in a low voice touched with a faint Italian cadence. "She is mine." 4 words, only 4, yet they carried the weight of a death sentence. Marcus stood there, mouth open, unable to believe what he was hearing. "You have no idea who you are talking to. I am NYPD." "And I am," the stranger replied with a smile that never reached his eyes. "Gabriel Castellano." The name froze the air in the VIP area. Carly did not know what it meant, but she saw that Marcus did. He knew exactly what it meant, his face draining from red to a sickly white in an instant, his lips moving with no sound coming out. Gabriel did not need to say another word. He simply inclined his head, and as if summoned from nothing, 4 large men in black suits appeared, surrounding Marcus before he could react. "Take him outside," Gabriel said lightly, gently. "I do not want the floor stained." One of the men seized Marcus by the arm, and this time he was the one being dragged away. Marcus struggled, tried to shout something about his badge, about his authority, but no one cared. The NYPD officer who had kept Carly living in fear for 4 months was escorted out like a drunk, causing a disturbance, and Carly stood there, in the arms of the man she had just kissed, finally understanding what she had done. Gabriel Castellano, the ghost, the boss of one of the 5 most powerful mafia families in New York. She had kissed one of the most dangerous men in America to escape an abusive ex. From the fire, she had leapt straight into hell. Gabriel did not release her. Instead, he guided her gently yet firmly down onto the gleaming black leather sofa beside him, as if it were the most natural thing in the world, as if she belonged there, next to him, within the reach of his arm. Carly trembled, unsure whether it was fear or the lingering aftershock of the kiss still burning on her lips. Nina tried to force her way toward them, but one of Gabriel's guards stopped her with a slight shake of his head. "Explain," Gabriel said, his voice low and steady. Not a question, but an order. Carly swallowed. "I am sorry. I did not mean to. She did not know where to begin, did not know how to explain to a mafia boss that she had just used him as a human shield without permission. Gabriel tilted his head, dark eyes studying her as if she were a puzzle he intended to solve. "That man, Marcus, who is he?" "NYPD," Carly whispered, her hands twisting the fabric of her dress on her thighs. "And my ex-boyfriend." "Ex-boyfriend," Gabriel repeated, his tone flat and emotionless. "But he does not think so. We broke up 4 months ago." The words spilled from Carly like a flood she could not stop. But he would not accept it. "He followed me. He broke into my apartment. I moved twice, and he still found me. He is a cop, so no one believes me. His colleagues laughed in my face when I tried to report it. And when you do not obey," Gabriel said slowly, his gaze dropping to her wrist, where fresh bruises were beginning to bloom. "He does things like this." Carly did not answer. She did not need to. Her silence said everything. Gabriel took a sip from his glass, his face revealing nothing, then set it down and looked directly into her eyes. "I have a proposition." Carly's heart tightened. She knew nothing was free in this world, especially nothing from a man like Gabriel Castellano. "What do you want?" "You will play the role of my girlfriend," Gabriel said plainly, without pretense. "I need a woman by my side at social events. You will live in my penthouse, be protected 24 hours a day, and Marcus Webb will never be able to touch you again." Carly blinked. "That is it. That is all. That is all," he replied, something flickering through his eyes too fast for her to read. "Unless you want more." "And if I refuse?" she asked, even though she already knew the answer. "Then you are free to walk out right now," Gabriel shrugged, "and Marcus will be waiting for you out there. My men only removed him from the club, not from your life. The choice is yours, Cara. Cara, beloved." The Italian word on his lips sounded like a promise and a warning at the same time. Carly looked toward the exit, where she knew Marcus was waiting, then back at the most dangerous man she had ever met. The man who had kissed her as if she were something precious. The man who had dismissed Marcus with a single nod. She knew this was a deal with the devil. She knew Gabriel Castellano was not a good man. But between a familiar devil who had broken her ribs and an unfamiliar one offering protection, the choice felt painfully clear. "I agree," she heard herself say, and part of her wondered whether she had just saved her own life or signed her own death sentence. The glossy black Rolls-Royce Phantom glided smoothly through the Manhattan streets at night, carrying Carly into a world utterly unlike anything she had ever known. She sat in silence beside Gabriel, who had not spoken a single word since they left the Eclipse Lounge. He only looked out the window, his face half lit and half swallowed by shadow as streetlights slid past, like a statue carved from darkness. Nina had wanted to come along, but Gabriel needed only one look for her to understand that it was not part of the arrangement. Carly had spent 10 minutes reassuring Nina that she would be fine, even though she herself was far from certain. Gabriel's building stood on the Upper East Side, one of the most expensive addresses in the city. A private elevator carried them straight to the penthouse, and when the doors opened, Carly had to bite back a gasp. The space spread before her like an unreachable dream, ceilings soaring high, floor-to-ceiling windows revealing the city glittering below. The furniture was minimalist, yet suffocatingly luxurious. From the Italian leather sofa to the abstract paintings, Carly guessed each cost as much as her entire studio apartment in the Bronx. Her rented place had cost $800 a month and was filthy and full of roaches. This place felt as if it cost $800 a minute just to breathe its air. "Your room is on the east side," Gabriel said at last, his voice echoing through the vast space. "There are clothes in the closet, toiletries in the bathroom. If you need anything, there is a call button by the bed." "Did you prepare all this in advance?" Carly asked, unable to hide her surprise. Gabriel looked at her, a flicker of something like amusement passing through his dark eyes. "I prepare for every situation. Good night, Cara." He disappeared down the shadowed hallway before she could say another word. The bedroom meant for Carly was 3 times larger than her old apartment, with a king-size bed dressed in Egyptian silk sheets, a private bathroom with a marble-soaking tub and a double shower, and a walk-in closet filled with dresses she did not dare check the price tags on. Everything was perfect. Everything was foreign. Everything made her want to run. Carly showered and lay down on the softest bed she had ever touched, but sleep would not come. She lay there staring at the ceiling, her mind spinning with thoughts she could not silence. What was she doing here? In the penthouse of a mafia boss? Had she escaped one monster only to throw herself into the arms of another? But at least this monster did not hit her. Not yet. Footsteps echoed down the hallway, steady and controlled. Gabriel was still awake, and somehow that made Carly feel a little safer, or perhaps she was only lying to herself. Early sunlight slipped through the sheer curtains and woke Carly after a night of restless half-sleep. It took her a few seconds to remember where she was, and when she did, her stomach clenched tight. Gabriel Castellano's penthouse. She had really done it. She had sold her soul to one devil to escape another. A sound echoed from outside the bedroom and drew her attention. Carly slipped into the silk robe she found in the closet and eased the door open. The penthouse in the morning was even more overwhelming than it had been at night. Sunlight flooded through the glass walls, exposing the ruthless beauty of the space. And at the center of it all, Gabriel sat at the dining table, a cup of espresso before him, a phone pressed to his ear. He had changed clothes, wearing a perfectly tailored 3-piece gray suit, his dark hair slicked neatly back, looking as though he had stepped straight off the cover of a GQ magazine. But that was not what froze Carly in place. It was his voice. "I do not care how many children he has," Gabriel said into the phone, his tone cold as ice. utterly devoid of emotion. He has 1 week to pay. If not, cut off one finger and send it to his wife every day until he understands the situation. Start with the pinky and end with the thumb. Carly's breath caught in her throat. She stood there as if turned to stone, unable to believe what she was hearing. And if he still does not pay after the fingers? Gabriel glanced at Carly, his eyes not wavering in the slightest as he continued. Then move on to the toes. He ended the call as if he had just discussed the weather instead of ordering torture. A middle-aged woman in a housekeeper's uniform appeared from nowhere and set a plate of eggs Benedict and a glass of fresh orange juice in front of Gabriel. The woman cast a curious glance at Carly, but said nothing. "Good morning, Kara," Gabriel said, nodding toward the chair across from him. "Sit down, eat breakfast." Carly did not move. "You just ordered someone's fingers cut off." Her voice trembled. "Yes," Gabriel replied, taking a sip of espresso, completely calm. "And if he does not pay his debt, I will do far worse." "How much does she know about my world, Victoria?" The middle-aged woman, whom Gabriel had addressed as Victoria, answered evenly. "Not much, sir. Caroline Ashford, 28 years old, nurse at Bronx General Hospital, orphaned at 12, passed through 7 foster homes, $120,000 in student loan debt, younger brother addicted to drugs and owing money to a street gang, ex-boyfriend Marcus Webb, NYPD officer, 3 domestic violence reports buried by colleagues." Carly felt the blood drain from her face. They had investigated her. In a single night, they knew everything about her, even the secrets she had tried to hide from the world. "You have been watching me," she whispered, accusation heavy in her voice. "I protect my investments," Gabriel replied, setting his coffee cup down. "Now sit and eat breakfast, Carly. We have many things to do today." It was not an invitation. It was a command. And when Carly looked into Gabriel's dark, emotionless eyes, she understood a terrifying truth. She had not escaped a cage. She had only traded a rusted iron one for a golden one, and somehow, that golden cage felt safer. And that was the most frightening thing of all. 1 week passed inside Gabriel's penthouse like a strange dream Carly could not wake from. She had everything she had never dared to want. Expensive clothes, exquisite food, a bed soft enough to swallow her whole, and absolute safety. Marcus could not touch her here. No one could. Yet she was also a prisoner inside this very luxury. Gabriel was almost never there. He left before she woke and returned after she had already fallen asleep. They were like 2 ghosts, sharing the same roof, never crossing paths, until Saturday night. Carly was curled up on the sofa reading when Gabriel walked in, shrugging off his suit jacket and loosening his tie. He looked tired, a kind of weariness she had never seen on the face he usually kept under perfect control. "Have dinner with me," he said. Not a question. Carly closed her book and followed him to the dining table, where Victoria had already set 2 plates of steak and red wine. They ate in silence for a while, the only sound the soft clink of cutlery against porcelain. Then Gabriel set his glass down and looked at her with dark eyes that revealed nothing. "Tell me about yourself. Not what Victoria investigated, what you want me to know." Carly nearly choked on her bite. She had not expected this. Not expected genuine interest from a man she had seen order someone's fingers cut off only days before. "There is nothing to tell," she said, avoiding his gaze. "You already know everything." "I know facts," Gabriel said slowly. "But facts and stories are not the same thing. Do you want to tell me your story?" That question, asked in a low voice without judgment, somehow shattered the wall Carly had spent years building. And she began to speak about the car accident when she was 12, how she lost both parents on a rainy night, about the cold foster system, where she was just a number in a file, about 7 foster families, each its own version of hell. The first only wanted the government checks, the second had too many children to care about her, the third— She stopped, her voice tightening. Gabriel did not rush her. He simply sat there, silent, waiting. "The third family had a foster father who liked to use his belt," Carly finally said, her voice barely a whisper. "He said it was discipline. Said I needed to be taught. I stayed there for 2 years before someone noticed the scars on my back." Gabriel's hand tightened around his wine glass until Carly thought it might shatter, but his face remained composed, only his eyes darkening like a gathering storm. "And the families after that?" he asked, his low voice edged with danger. "Better," she shrugged. "Or at least they did not leave visible scars. I survived. I supported myself from 18. I finished nursing school. I thought my life was finally getting better." "Then you met Marcus," Gabriel said. Not a question. Then I met Marcus. Carly gave a bitter smile, and I walked straight into the same circle all over again. Silence stretched between them like an invisible curtain. Carly had said everything, had emptied herself of secrets she had never told anyone, and now she felt hollow, stripped bare, exposed. She waited for judgment, for pity, or worse, for indifference. But Gabriel did none of those things. He rose and walked to the glass wall overlooking the city glittering below, his back to her, his shoulders slightly bowed as if carrying an unseen weight. I was 15 when I watched my father die. Gabriel's voice filled the stillness, low and distant, as though he were telling someone else's story. Right in front of me, at the dinner table, we were eating pasta my mother had cooked when they burst in. 5 men, black masks, guns in their hands. They did not say a word. They just fired. 6 bullets into my father's chest. Carly stopped breathing. She did not know what to say, did not know if she should say anything at all. My mother screamed. Lucia, my sister, she was only 12, ran to hold our father. And I, Gabriel turned back to her, his dark eyes showing the first crack in their steel wall. I stood there like a coward. I did nothing. I could do nothing. You were just a child, Carly whispered. Gabriel laughed, but there was no joy in the sound. That child died with his father that night. My mother never recovered. She found my father at the bottom of a bottle, in sleeping pills, in pain that could not be eased. 3 months after the funeral, I came home and found her in the bathtub. The water had been cold for a long time. Carly lifted a hand to cover her mouth, tears spilling freely. She had thought her own life was hell, but compared to what Gabriel had endured, her pain felt like little more than a surface scratch. Lucia and I were taken in by our Uncle Enzo, Gabriel went on, his voice hardening into steel. I swore I would protect my sister with my life. I learned to shoot. I learned to fight. I learned to kill. I became the monster my father never wanted me to be, all to keep Lucia safe. And then, Carly asked softly, afraid of the answer. And then I failed, Gabriel replied, his voice breaking for a brief moment before he regained control. Lucia was 20. I was 23. I had built my empire, had become a name that made enemies tremble. But I was not fast enough. The Ricci family kidnapped my sister to retaliate for my expansion. They held her for 3 days. He paused, his jaw tightening. 3 days. When I found her, it was too late. They had done things that cannot be spoken aloud. Then they cut her throat and sent me the video. Carly stood without thinking and stepped toward Gabriel. She did not know what she was doing, did not know if he would push her away, but she reached out and touched his arm. A small gesture, a fragile connection between 2 people carrying scars no one could see. Gabriel looked down at her hand, then into her eyes, and for the first time, Carly did not see the cold mafia boss. She saw a 15-year-old boy who had lost everything. Now she understood why he had become a monster, because this world had never given him another choice. That night, nightmares came for Carly like an old, uninvited friend. She was running down an endless corridor, doors sealed tight on both sides, Marcus's footsteps echoing behind her. Run wherever you want, Carly. His voice boomed like sound in a cave. You belong to me. You will always belong to me. Then the hallway vanished, and she was 13 again, curled into a corner while the shadow of her foster father loomed over her, a belt clenched in his hand. You think you deserve to be loved, he roared. No one wants you. No one ever will. Carly screamed and jolted upright in bed, drenched in sweat, her heart pounding as if it would tear free from her chest. She did not know where she was, did not recognize the luxury around her, only knew she needed to run, to hide, to disappear. The bedroom door flew open and Gabriel rushed in, eyes sweeping the room for danger, a gun already in his hand from somewhere. When he realized there was no intruder, only Carly shaking on the bed with terror wide in her eyes, he lowered the weapon and came to her side. Nightmare? He asked, his voice lower than usual. Carly nodded, unable to speak, hugging her knees as she struggled to slow her ragged breathing. The thin silk straps of her nightgown had slipped from one shoulder, exposing her upper back. The scars, Gabriel said, his voice suddenly sharp as a blade. She froze. She had forgotten them, the pale white lines crisscrossing her back she had always hidden so carefully. Gabriel did not ask permission. He sat beside her and gently drew the fabric lower to see more clearly. Carly wanted to resist, to cover herself, but she was too exhausted to do anything but sit there and let him see the ugliest parts of her. How many? Gabriel asked, his voice holding back a fury simmering beneath the surface. I do not know, Carly whispered. I stopped counting after the 20th. He said each scar would teach me a lesson, that I needed to be more obedient, more grateful, that no one wanted a bad child like me, so I should feel lucky anyone took me in. Where is he now? Gabriel asked, each word like a bullet. Dead, Carly replied. Heart attack 5 years ago. She heard Gabriel release a long breath, as if he had just lost the chance to take revenge for her with his own hands. Then he did something she did not expect. He removed his jacket, set the gun on the bedside table, and lay down beside her. Lie down, he said, not as an order but an invitation. You will not have nightmares tonight. Carly looked at him with wary eyes. Why are you doing this? Because I know what nightmares are, Gabriel replied, his dark eyes fixed on hers. And I know how terrible it is to wake up alone after them. Carly did not know what compelled her to do what came next. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was the loneliness built up over so many years. Maybe it was because, for the first time in her life, someone had seen her scars and had not run away. She lay down beside him, and when Gabriel's arm slid around her waist, pulling her into the warmth of his chest, she felt safe, truly safe. For the first time in 28 years, she fell asleep in the arms of a monster, and no nightmare dared come for her again. 2 weeks after that night, everything between them had changed in ways Carly could not define. By day, Gabriel was still the cold kingpin, still issuing ruthless orders over the phone, still making others tremble with nothing more than a look. But at night, he would knock on her door, say nothing, simply lie down beside her and hold her until morning. They did nothing more than that. Just the warmth of 2 bodies pushing back the dark, 2 broken souls finding peace in each other's presence. Tonight, you are coming with me, Gabriel announced on Saturday morning, setting a black velvet box on the breakfast table. A Manhattan high society charity event. You will appear as mine. Carly opened the box and forgot how to breathe. Inside lay a diamond jewelry set sparkling like frozen tears, a necklace, earrings, and a bracelet. Victoria will take you to prepare, Gabriel added, as if he had given her something ordinary rather than a fortune equal to a house. Tonight, the world will know who you belong to. And it did. When Carly entered the Plaza Hotel in a form-fitting red gown, her hair swept up to reveal her slender neck adorned with diamonds, her hand resting on Gabriel's arm, she felt every gaze turn toward them. Whispers rippled through the room like waves. Castellano is here. Who is the woman beside him? Who is she to stand next to the ghost? Gabriel guided her through the room as if she were his most prized trophy. He introduced her to banking magnates, politicians, and faces Carly sensed belonged to the same shadowed world as his. And to each of them, he said only one thing. This is Carly. She is mine. Not girlfriend. Not lover. Just mine. As if she were a possession. Strangely, it did not make Carly feel insulted. It made her feel protected. Gabriel Castellano. The voice cut through the air like a blade. Carly turned to see a man approaching them, about 50 years old, salt and pepper hair, a sharp face with steel-gray eyes. People around them parted instinctively, as if he carried an invisible field of danger. Antonio, Gabriel replied, his voice so cold the temperature in the room seemed to drop. Ricci. Carly felt her blood turn to ice. Ricci, the family that had murdered Gabriel's sister, his sworn enemy, and now he stood right in front of them, gray eyes sliding over her with undisguised hunger. Beautiful girl, Antonio said, the smile on his lips never reaching his eyes. When you grow tired of her, let me know. I will show her what a real man is like. Gabriel's hand tightened around Carly's waist until it nearly hurt, yet his voice remained calm, almost gentle. She will never know, because she will never leave me. Antonio laughed loudly and walked away, but Carly saw a promise of war burning in those gray eyes. 3 days after the charity event, Carly's past came knocking in a way she never expected. She was sitting in the living room reading when her phone vibrated with an unfamiliar number. She meant to ignore it, but something compelled her to answer. Carly, is that you? The trembling voice on the other end tightened her chest instantly. Daniel, her younger brother, the brother she had not seen in 6 months because every meeting ended with him begging for money to buy drugs. Daniel, where are you calling from? What happened to your number? Sis, I need your help. Daniel's voice was frantic, his breathing ragged as if he were running from something. I owe people money. A lot. They said if I do not pay within 1 week, they will kill me. How much? Carly asked, even though she knew the answer would not be something she wanted to hear. 50,000, Daniel whispered, as if saying it louder would make the number more real. It started as 10,000, but the interest kept piling up, and I cannot pay it back. Sis, I am terrified. They already beat me once. They said next time they will cut off my fingers. $50,000. Carly closed her eyes, the sensation like a punch to the stomach. She did not have that kind of money. She was already $120,000 deep in student loan debt. She did not even have a job anymore, having left the hospital to live in Gabriel's penthouse. I am sorry, sis, Daniel sobbed. I know I am a burden. I know I have disappointed you so many times, but you are the only person I have. Please, please save me. Carly wanted to scream, to tell Daniel how many times he had wrecked his own life, how many chances she had given him that he had thrown away. But he was the only blood family she had left, the only thread tying her to her past, to her dead parents, to the child she had been before the world took everything from her. Let me think of something, she said, her voice shaking. Where are you right now? I am hiding in a warehouse in Brooklyn. They are looking for me, sis. I do not know how long I can hide. She ended the call and sat there, her mind spinning. $50,000. Could she ask Gabriel? No, she could not. She did not want to owe him anything more. Their relationship was complicated enough already. But what other choice did she have? Is something wrong? Gabriel's voice came from behind her, making Carly flinch. He stood at the doorway to the living room, still in his black suit, eyes sharp as blades as they studied her. Nothing, Carly said too quickly, too urgently. She knew she was lying badly, and she knew Gabriel saw straight through it. He said nothing, only watched her for a long moment before turning away. But that night, when Carly lay awake unable to sleep, Victoria knocked on her bedroom door. Mr. Castellano wishes you to know that your brother's problem has been resolved, she said in her flat, emotionless tone. The debt has been paid. Daniel is on his way to a rehabilitation center in California, a 6-month program. All expenses have been covered. Carly's mouth fell open. She had not told Gabriel about Daniel. She had not told anyone. How did he know? Mr. Castellano knows everything that happens in this city, Victoria replied, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world, and he protects what belongs to him, including what belongs to those who belong to him. When Victoria left, Carly sat alone in the dark, tears streaming down her face. She did not know whether she was crying from relief, from gratitude, or from the realization that she was falling into something far deeper than the agreement she had first made. In another corner of the city, inside a rundown bar in Queens, Marcus Webb sat nursing his 5th glass of whiskey, stewing in the humiliation he had been forced to swallow. 4 weeks had passed since that night at the Eclipse Lounge. 4 weeks since he had been dragged out of the club like a common criminal instead of a respected police officer. 4 weeks since Carly, the treacherous whore, had kissed a stranger right in front of him, Gabriel Castellano. Marcus had done his homework on that name. The Ghost. The boss of the Castellano crime family. One of the most dangerous men in America. Any normal man would have walked away once he understood who he was up against. But Marcus was not normal. He was obsessed, and obsession did not know the meaning of surrender. Carly belonged to him. She had always belonged to him. And he would take back what was his, even if he had to walk straight through hell to do it. He had something Gabriel Castellano did not. He had a police badge. He had access to classified NYPD files on gang activity. He knew secrets even the FBI would kill to get their hands on. And he knew exactly who Castellano's enemies were. So when a man in an expensive suit slid into the seat across from him, Marcus was not surprised. He had reached out to the Ricci family a week earlier, and they had finally agreed to meet. "You are the cop who wanted to speak with Mr. Ricci," the man said, his voice cold as steel. "Why should I care about you?" "Because I have something your boss wants," Marcus replied, smiling for the first time in weeks. "Information on Castellano, his movements, the locations of his warehouses, the names of his informants inside the police department, everything you need to bring him down." "And what do you want in return?" the man asked, his gaze softening just a fraction. "Carly Ashford," Marcus said, gripping his glass until it nearly shattered. "She is living with Castellano. I want her back with me, alive or dead." The man studied him for a long moment, as if weighing the depth of his madness, then nodded. "Mr. Ricci will see you, tomorrow night. The address will be sent later." Marcus smiled, the twisted smile of a man who had lost his last shred of sanity. He did not care whether he was walking into the lion's den. He did not care whether he lived or died. All that mattered was Carly. If he could not have her, no one would. And if that meant allying himself with the devil to make it happen, he was more than willing to sell his soul. Somewhere in Gabriel's luxurious penthouse, Carly slept peacefully in the arms of the man she was beginning to have real feelings for, unaware that a storm was coming, unaware that her past was clawing its way back toward her. And this time, hell was not coming alone. Everything happened too fast for Carly to react. She was sitting in a hair salon on the Upper East Side, where Victoria had scheduled an appointment to prepare her for an event that evening. 2 of Gabriel's bodyguards stood outside the glass doors, and she felt safe. She was wrong. Gunshots exploded outside, followed by the crash of shattering glass and the screams of the salon staff. Carly sprang from the chair, but before she could run, a hand clamped over her mouth from behind and a needle pierced her neck. The world spun, then collapsed into darkness. When she came to, her head throbbed like it was being split open, and her mouth tasted dry and bitter. She was lying on the icy concrete floor of an abandoned warehouse, her hands bound behind her back with rope pulled so tight her wrists were numb. Weak light from a few bare bulbs dangling from the ceiling cast grotesque shadows along the stained walls. The air reeked of dampness and rust. Finally awake. "Are you?" a voice said, and the blood in Carly's veins turned to ice. She lifted her head and saw Marcus step out of the shadows, his face twisted with hatred and madness. Behind him stood 3 men dressed in black, whom she guessed belonged to the Ricci family. "No," she whispered, her voice shaking. "Marcus, please, please," he sneered, dropping to his knees in front of her, grabbing her chin and forcing her to look into his eyes. "4 months ago you ran away like a dog. You made me tear this city apart looking for you. Then you kissed another man right in front of me, and now you beg." He struck her. The first punch landed on her cheek, snapping her head to the side and sending a high ringing through her ears. The second hit her stomach, folding her over as the air burst from her lungs. The third slammed into her ribs, right where the old injury had never fully healed, and she screamed in pain. "This is all your fault," Marcus roared as he kept hitting her. "I love you. I gave you everything. I only wanted to protect you. But you were too selfish to understand that. You made me do this. You made me teach you a lesson." Carly lay curled on the floor, blood streaming from her mouth and nose, her body hurting so badly she could no longer distinguish one blow from another. It was all one massive wave of pain swallowing her whole, and even through it, she thought of Gabriel. He would find her. He had to find her. "You are thinking about that Castellano bastard, aren't you?" Marcus spat onto the floor beside her. "He is not coming. The Ricci family has traps everywhere. If he comes, he will die, and you will watch him die before I take you home." Carly looked up, her eyes swollen shut yet still defiant. "He will kill you," she whispered through her split, swollen lips. "He will find you and tear you apart piece by piece. And I will watch," Marcus snarled, then kicked her in the stomach so hard she could not breathe. "He is a monster. You chose a monster over me." Carly laughed, a broken, delirious sound echoing through the empty warehouse. "Yes," she said, "he is a monster. But he is my monster. And you, Marcus, are just a coward who beats women to feel strong." The next kick knocked her unconscious. But before the darkness claimed her completely, she swore she heard the distant crack of gunfire somewhere far away. Gabriel was in a meeting with the family's capos when Victoria burst into the room without knocking, something she had never done in 20 years of service, and one look at her ashen face told him something horrific had happened. "Carly," Victoria said, her voice trembling for the first time in her life. "They took her. The salon. 2 of our men are dead." Gabriel's world stopped. For one brief moment, he was no longer a powerful mafia boss. He was simply a man who had just lost the most precious thing he owned. Then that moment passed, and something else woke inside him. Something primal. Something without mercy. "Who?" he asked, a single word carrying a promise of death. "Ricci. And the cop, Marcus Webb. They are working together." Gabriel rose to his feet, and everyone in the room instinctively stepped back. His eyes were no longer black. They were bottomless voids where nothing existed but destruction. "Gather everyone," he said, his voice low and lethal. "Everyone. I want to know where she is within 30 minutes, and I want Antonio Ricci's head before dawn." What followed was like a storm tearing through the city. Gabriel's information network went into full force. Every eye, every ear, every informant activated. Within 25 minutes, They had Carly's location, an abandoned warehouse in Brooklyn, exactly as expected. Ricci thought himself clever, setting a trap, but he forgot one thing. Gabriel Castellano did not walk into traps. He destroyed them. A convoy of black vehicles tore through the streets of Brooklyn like specters of death. Gabriel sat in the back seat, a loaded gun in his hand, eyes fixed forward. Luca, his younger brother, sat beside him with a rare look of worry. "You need to stay calm," Luca said. "This could be a trap." "I do not need calm," Gabriel replied, his voice ice-cold. "I need her alive. And I need Marcus Webb dead." They did not enter through the front door, as Ricci expected. They came from everywhere at once. The roof, the windows, the back entrance, the drainage tunnels, 40 of Gabriel's men against 20 of Ricci's. The fight ended in less than 10 minutes. Gabriel walked into the warehouse through bodies and gunpowder smoke, and when he saw Carly lying motionless on the concrete floor, blood smeared across her face, her body bruised and broken, something inside him shattered completely. Carly opened her eyes at that moment. She saw Gabriel standing there, his face no longer the familiar cold mask. It was something more primal, more feral, more terrifying than anything she had ever seen. And behind him, Marcus was being held by 2 men, his face drained white with fear. Gabriel stepped in front of Marcus without a word. He drew the knife from his belt, and what followed made Carly turn her face away. Marcus's screams echoed through the warehouse, long and agonizing. She did not look, but she heard the blade tearing through flesh, heard bones breaking, heard Marcus begging for his life, the pleas dissolving into whimpers, then into silence. When Gabriel turned back to her, his hands were soaked in blood. But when he knelt beside her, when he gently lifted her, as if she were the most precious thing in the world, his eyes were black again, and they were crying. "I am sorry," he whispered, his voice breaking. "I am sorry I did not protect you." Carly raised a trembling hand and touched his cheek, smearing his blood across his skin without caring. "You came," she whispered. "That is all that matters." 3 days passed like a fever dream. Carly lay in the familiar bed of the penthouse, her body aching with 2 broken ribs, her face swollen as bruises faded from deep purple into sickly yellow-green, and a split lip slowly knitting itself back together. Gabriel's private doctor came every day to examine her injuries, change her bandages, and give her pain medication. But the one who never left her side for even a second was Gabriel. He slept in the armchair beside her bed, waking whenever she shifted, already holding a glass of water or painkillers before she could even ask. He fed her broth when her hands shook too badly to hold a spoon. He carried her to the bathroom when she needed it, because her legs were too weak to support her. The most powerful mafia boss in New York, the man who made an entire city tremble, was caring for her as if she were the most fragile child in the world. And he said nothing, not a single unnecessary word, only short, quiet questions. "Does it hurt? Are you hungry? What do you need?" The silence weighed heavier than any speech. Carly knew he was punishing himself, blaming himself for what had happened to her, drowning in guilt she did not know how to pull him out of. On the 3rd night, when the pain had dulled enough that she could sit up without gasping for breath, she caught Gabriel's hand as he set a glass of water on the bedside table. "Talk to me," she whispered, her voice rough. "Please." Gabriel stood there, his hand rigid in hers. In the dim light, she saw the dark circles beneath his eyes, the exhaustion carved into a face that usually revealed nothing. "I almost lost you," he finally said, his voice tight, like I lost Lucia. "I swore I would protect you, and I failed." "You did not fail." Carly tightened her grip on his hand. "You came. You saved me. I am still here. But you were hurt." Gabriel dropped to his knees beside the bed, his head bowed low, and for the first time since she had known him, she saw his shoulders shake. "I am sorry, Carly. I am sorry I did not protect you. I am sorry I dragged you into my world. I am sorry for everything that I am." Carly lifted her bruised hand and tilted his face up, forcing him to look at her. And she saw something she never expected. Tears. Gabriel Castellano, the ghost, the monster of the underworld, was crying. "Do not apologize for what you are," she said, her voice steady despite the pain in her body. "Because what you are saved me. What you are gave me a place to belong. And what you are," she hesitated, her heart pounding, "is what I am starting to love." 1 week after that night, when the wounds on Carly's body had begun to heal but the wounds in her soul were still bleeding, she stood before the glass wall of the penthouse and looked down at the restless city below. She had watched Gabriel kill a man, not through rumors, not through imagination, but with her own eyes. She had heard Marcus scream in agony, heard the blade tear through flesh, heard bones crack, and she had seen Gabriel step out of the darkness with blood-soaked hands and not a trace of regret in his eyes. That was the truth of the man she was living with. That was the truth of the man she had just said she was beginning to love. He was a monster, a killer, a ruthless mafia boss without mercy, and she had every reason to run. Marcus was dead. The greatest threat of her life was gone. She could leave now, return to a normal life, start over in another city where no one knew her name. Gabriel would not stop her. He had said so that morning, when she was strong enough to walk on her own. "You are free now," he had said, his voice flat as frozen water. "Marcus is dead. The Ricci family has been wiped out. No one is threatening you anymore. If you want to leave, I will have someone take you anywhere you wish. Money, a home, a new job. Everything will be arranged. You do not have to stay out of obligation or fear." And then he had walked away, leaving her alone with a decision she knew would change her life forever. Carly stood there for hours, her mind churning with opposing thoughts. She thought of the 7 foster families, of Marcus, of all the men who had hurt her. They all shared one thing. They had made her feel small, weak, unworthy. Then she thought of Gabriel, of the way he looked at her as if she were the most precious thing in the world, of the way he listened to her past without judgment, of the way he held her through nightmares, of the way he cried when he thought he had failed to protect her, of the way he killed Marcus, not out of hatred but because no one was allowed to hurt her and live. Gabriel was a monster, but he was her monster, and her monster had never made her feel small. On the contrary, beside him she felt stronger than she ever had before. Footsteps sounded behind her, and she knew it was Gabriel without turning around. He stopped a few steps away, waiting, always waiting, never forcing. "I have decided," Carly said, still looking out the window. He did not answer, but she felt the tension thicken the air. "I choose to stay." She turned to face him, her gaze steady. "Not because I am afraid, not because I have nowhere else to go, but because I want to be here, with you." Gabriel stood there, his face revealing nothing, yet she saw something flicker in his dark eyes, hope, relief, and something deeper she did not dare name. "I know who you are," she continued, stepping closer to him. "I know what you have done. I know you will do such things again. And I still choose you, because you are the first person in my life who has ever made me feel truly protected, the first to see my scars and not run away, the first to make me believe that maybe, just maybe, I too deserve to be loved." Gabriel lifted his hand and touched her cheek, gentle as if she were something fragile and breakable. "Are you sure?" he asked, his voice rough. "Because once you are mine, I will never let you go." Carly smiled, her first smile since the kidnapping. "I am counting on that." That night, after Carly declared she was staying, Gabriel led her into his study, a place she had never entered before. A dark room lined with bookshelves that rose to the ceiling, a black oak desk, and a large safe concealed behind an Italian landscape painting. Gabriel opened the safe and removed a leather briefcase, setting it on the desk in front of her. "I need you to know some things," he said in a low voice, "before we go any further. Before you belong to me completely." Carly looked at him with quiet confusion as he opened the briefcase and laid out the documents one by one. "Your student loans," Gabriel said, placing the first folder down. $120,000, paid in full 2 weeks after you moved in." Carly stared, unable to breathe, her eyes dropping to the bank confirmation stamped paid in full in bold red letters. A debt that had crushed her chest for 10 years simply gone. "Daniel," Gabriel continued, setting down the second folder. "The most exclusive rehabilitation center in California. A 12-month program instead of the 6 I mentioned before. Your brother has completed the first phase and is making real progress, and I have arranged a job for him when he finishes." Tears slid down Carly's cheeks, and she did not bother to wipe them away. Daniel, her brother, the one she had nearly given up on, finally receiving real help for the first time in his life. "Nina," Gabriel said, placing the final folder on the desk. "A 2-bedroom apartment on the Upper West Side, in her name, fully paid, and she has been promoted to night shift manager at the hospital. I did not interfere directly. I only made sure the right people noticed her talent." Carly could not speak. She stood there with tears streaming, staring at the man the world called a monster, who had quietly reshaped her life and the lives of those she loved without asking for anything in return. "Why?" she whispered, her voice breaking. "Why are you doing all this?" "Because you deserve it," Gabriel answered, stepping closer and lifting her face with a warm hand. "Because for the first time in my life, I have found someone worth protecting, worth fighting for, worth changing for. You asked me who I am? I am a monster, Carly, but you made me your monster, and your monster would burn the world if it made you smile." Carly needed no more words. She rose onto her toes and kissed him, not the desperate kiss of that first night in the club, but a kiss of choice, of acceptance, of love. Gabriel returned the kiss with all the restraint he had held for weeks, and when that restraint finally broke, he lifted her into his arms and carried her to his bedroom. Not hers, his. That night, for the first time, they belonged to each other in every sense of the word, Gabriel loving her slowly and gently, as if she were a treasure he feared would shatter if touched too hard, kissing every scar on her back, every healing bruise on her body, whispering words in Italian she did not understand but felt in her bones. And afterward, as they lay entwined, bodies and breath woven together, Carly realized she had found something she never believed she deserved. A home, not walls and a roof, but the arms of a man who would burn the world for her, and she would stand beside him in that fire. Not because she had nowhere else to go, but because there was nowhere else she wanted to be. 1 year passed like a dream Carly never wanted to wake from. 12 months beside Gabriel, changing her in ways she never expected. She no longer flinched when someone raised a hand suddenly, no longer slept with a folding knife under her pillow, no longer glanced over her shoulder every time she stepped outside. She had learned how to trust, how to be loved, how to accept that she deserved happiness. Daniel had completed his rehabilitation program and was now working for a nonprofit organization helping the homeless. For the first time in his life, her brother's eyes were clear, and his smile no longer shadowed by addiction. Nina had moved into her new apartment and was dating Luca, Gabriel's younger brother, an unexpected love that somehow felt written in the stars. And Carly, the orphan who had survived 7 foster homes and an abusive relationship, was now the unofficial queen of the Castellano Empire. "Tonight," Gabriel said, on a cool autumn afternoon, "I want to take you somewhere, dress beautifully." And she did not ask where, because after a year she had learned that Gabriel loved surprises, and his surprises always left her breathless. But she did not expect the car to stop in front of the Eclipse Lounge, the place where everything had begun. Her heart racing as Gabriel led her inside. The club completely empty yet glowing with thousands of candles and overflowing with red roses, the VIP area where she had kissed him in desperation 1 year earlier, now resembling a fairy tale garden in the heart of Manhattan. "Gabriel," she whispered, eyes wide with wonder. "What is this?" But he did not answer, instead guiding her to the exact spot where she had rushed to kiss him on that fateful night, and then he did something she never imagined she would witness. Gabriel Castellano, the ghost, the most powerful mafia boss in New York, knelt before her. "1 year ago you kissed me out of desperation," he said, his voice low and full of emotion. "You chose me because you had no other choice, but then you stayed. You saw the monster in me and you stayed. You healed wounds I did not know I carried. You gave me a reason to become better even though I know I will never truly be good." And he took out a black velvet box and opened it, inside a diamond ring, simple and perfect as if it had been made only for her. "Caroline Ashford, will you become the wife of a monster? I promise to love you, protect you, and worship you until my final breath. I promise to be the darkness that shields you and the fire that warms you. I promise to kill anyone who dares to harm you, and to kneel before only you. Will you say yes?" And Carly cried, tears spilling freely, the happiest tears of her life. "Yes," she said, her voice trembling. "Yes, 1,000,000 times yes." And Gabriel slipped the ring onto her finger, rose, and kissed her amid the sea of roses and candlelight. And Carly knew she had found her happy ending, not in a castle with a prince, but in the arms of a monster who loved her more than his own life. 2 years after the wedding, on a winter night when snow fell thick and white beyond the windows, Carly lay on the familiar bed in the penthouse and watched the man she loved do the thing that melted her heart every time she saw it. Gabriel knelt beside the bed, the powerful hands that had once taken lives without blinking now resting gently on her 7-month pregnant belly, speaking to their unborn child in Italian. Carly did not understand every word, but she recognized a few she had come to know by heart. Amore, love, proteggerò, protect, sempre, forever. his voice low and warm in a way no one but her ever heard. The most feared mafia boss in New York, whispering promises to the daughter soon to be born, promising to love her, protect her, never let anyone hurt her, promising to be the father he wished he had had, promising to build her a safe world even if that world was forged from blood and shadow. "What are you telling her?" Carly asked softly, running her fingers through his hair. Gabriel looked up at her, and in those dark eyes she saw something she never imagined she would see in a man like him. Happiness, pure and complete. "I am telling her she is a miracle," Gabriel said, his voice thick with emotion, "that her mother is the bravest woman in the world for choosing to love a monster, and that her father will spend his entire life trying to be worthy of that love." Carly pulled him up and kissed him, a kiss salted with tears of happiness. Outside the window, the city still lay, wrapped in darkness with its own secrets and dangers. Gabriel's empire still existed, still operated in corners untouched by light. He was still the ghost, still the monster the underworld feared. But in this room, in these arms, there was only love, only family, only a happiness neither of them ever believed they deserved. Carly thought of the terrified girl in the nightclub bathroom all those years ago, the girl who had kissed a stranger in desperation. That girl could never have imagined that the most reckless decision of her life would lead to the greatest happiness she would ever know. But that is the miracle of life. Sometimes light comes from the darkest places, sometimes true love comes from the most imperfect people, and sometimes a monster is the only one who can save you. "I love you," Carly whispered into the dark. "I love you more," Gabriel replied, "more than my life, more than my empire, more than anything I ever thought I needed." "And I believe you," she said with a smile. "That is the greatest miracle of all. I believe you." They lay together in silence, hands entwined, listening to the snow fall outside and the steady rhythm of their child's heartbeat within her. Two broken souls who had found each other and become whole together, not by becoming better people, but by accepting one another with every scar and every shadow. This was their story. Imperfect, unconventional, but entirely their own, and they would not trade it for anything in the world. This story offers us profound lessons about life, that everyone carries their own scars, but scars do not define us, that true love is not about finding someone perfect, but finding someone who accepts your imperfections, that sometimes we must be brave enough to step beyond our comfort zone to find real happiness, and most importantly, that you deserve to be loved, no matter how painful your past has been. If this story touched your heart, please press like and subscribe to our channel so you do not miss more emotional stories each day. Share this video with those you love to spread its message. We would truly love to know how you feel about Carly and Gabriel's story, and whether in real life you believe love can change a person. Leave your thoughts in the comments below so we can hear what is in your heart. We wish everyone watching good health, a joyful life, and peace of mind every day. Thank you for being with us. Goodbye, and see you in the next video.